Welcome back from winter break. We missed you here at Ohio Sports Zone. The only down part of all this is college football is over for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up that college football season, and we're going to dive headfirst into some basketball coverage coming up next on Ohio Sports Zone.
With 13 episodes left here on Ohio Sports Zone, my partner in crime, as always, Ethan Graham, I am Bobby Levine, and welcome to Ohio Sports Zone. Now, before we get things going here with the Bowl and the entire Bowl series, we're going to dive back into the very beginning of December when Ohio University took host to Western Michigan up in Detroit Ford Field in the MAC championship game. Ethan, what happened?
Yeah, it was certainly a long time ago. Ohio came in a massive underdog, appearing in their fourth MAC championship game in the Solich era. That is the most appearances by any MAC East team during that time span, and the second most in the MAC overall. The major storyline at quarterback for Ohio was Quentin Maxwell got the start after lots of speculation of who would take that first snap in Detroit. He fumbled and got Ohio to punt 2 times in their first 3 drives, led Coach Solich to switch over to Greg Windham, who on his third play threw a 67-yard bomb to Poppy White that was capped off by an 8-yard touchdown pass to Jordan Reed. This was all the positive in the first half for Ohio, as they would go into halftime down 23-7, running just 24 plays for 91 yards in the first half, but it was a game of 2 halves, Bobby. Ohio forced an interception on their first series. Brad Ellis would get a tipped interception, return it to the Western Michigan 5. Windham would punch it on the next play, making it 23-13 after a huge punt return by Western Michigan's Darius Phillips. Butch Hampton was able to make it 26-13. Windham would take the Cats down the field, make it 26-20. Big response there. Teams would trade field goals, 29-23 coming down the stretch with 1:24 left. Windham had the Bobcats with a chance to win the game, drove them all the way down to the 37, but a bad decision over the middle, right into the hands of Robert Spillane, ended for the Broncos. Corey Davis, Zach Terrell were too much for the Bobcats. Good night, Rufus. And that's how the MAC season ended for the Bobcats.
Absolutely. A couple stats to recap on before we get things rolling here. Zach Terrell finished the game 19-31, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. 2 things to add on that one. He had 1 interception the entire year going into the year. He was 30 touchdowns to 1 interception ratio. Incredible year for Zach Terrell. Great job by the Ohio Bobcats defense. Also, I noted before the championship game that if we had a chance to win this ball game, you had to put Greg Windham in. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Quentin Maxwell early on. The Bobcats got in a hole very, very, very early on, and Corey Davis lit up that defense in the first half. He had 8 receptions, 144 yards, and 1 touchdown. A couple Bobcat notes there. Poppy White, 2 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. And Jordan Reed, the senior, 3 receptions, 22 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Going to miss a couple key pieces on defense for the Bobcats, as Torrin Davis had 11 tackles, and so did Blair Brown. They are absolute monsters up the hole as a free safety in Torrin, and then Blair Brown as the linebacker. If you're looking back at the whole year, who was your defensive MVP?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's got to be Terrell Basham. He had 9 sacks this year, broke the Ohio University career record against Kansas, 14 and a half tackles for loss. He's an absolute game changer coming off the edge. It seemed like whenever Ohio needed a big sack, a big stop on defense to sway momentum, Terrell was there for him. They'll certainly miss him.
I'm going to go against you a little bit there. I think Blair Brown as a whole is an all-around package player. The guy can guard a tight end coming out of the backfield or a running back as well. And the guy just loves tackling. He was always up there in double figures every single game, it seemed like. Good luck to both those players, though. They will both be drafted and playing on Sundays here very shortly next season. My offensive MVP, you're going to like this one. You noted him a lot this year. It's going to be Louis Zervos, our kicker. He went 35 of 38 from extra points. He also went 29 of 35 from field goals. He was 1 for 1 above 50 yards. He had a 52-yarder for his career long. He has 122 points this year. This was about 35% of all of Ohio points. So good luck to him next year and the rest of the Bobcats as he looks to break the all-time Ohio point record as he's tied for third right now behind Matt Weller, who leads the Bobcats.
Yeah, an absolutely outstanding year from Louis. 29 field goals, like you said, already third all-time. Still get 51 behind Matt Weller. Certainly going to have a great chance to break that moving forward with 3 more years here on campus.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we got the rest of the bowls here for the MAC here on Ohio Sports Zone.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to Ohio Sports Zone. Again, this is Ethan Graham alongside me. I am Bobby Levine. And this segment, we're going to talk about the 6 bowl games the MAC played in this 2016 and 17 postseason. Wasn't too good of a bowl series for the MAC.
No, it certainly was not. The MAC went 0-6 in postseason play for the first time since 2013, and Ohio was a part of that, losing 28-23 to Troy. 5 turnovers for the Cats. We thought they were really coming on to something there in the second half. Greg Windham played exceptionally well, but threw 4 interceptions. Solich said his yards per completion and his mental toughness were the reasons he kept Windham in the game. Field position was the story of this game. Ohio started on their own 24 on average. Troy started on their own 41. That included 2 drives that started inside the 20 for Troy and resulted in touchdowns as a result of interceptions. Ohio again struggled to punch it in terms of the red zone, had to settle for 2 field goals in the second half. That would have been the difference in the game. And it's just kind of a microcosm of Ohio's season. They were competitive the whole game, couldn't quite get in the end zone, inconsistent, but unable to pull it out at the end. Wisconsin, 24-16 over Western Michigan, the team Ohio played in that MAC championship game. Western Michigan was the first MAC team to finish with 1 loss since Miami in 2003 with Big Ben Roethlisberger. Troy Fumagalli for Wisconsin had a huge play in the first half, absolutely mossed a guy. A pair of highlight reel catches, including a 26-yarder in the waning moments to give Wisconsin the victory and seal the deal. Wisconsin quarterbacks Alex Hornibrook and Bart Houston, a combined 13 for 14, 178 yards and a touchdown. Outstanding quarterback play by committee. You don't often see that, but hey, however you can get it done. Wisconsin went up 14-0 early, but they were able to remain in the game, much thanks to Corey Davis, who's one of the top wide receivers on almost every NFL draft board. 6 catches, 73 yards, a touchdown. Asante Brown on defense for the Broncos ended up with 12 tackles. Certainly a great performance for him, despite not pulling out the win. The bigger story here, PJ Fleck. This was his final game for Western Michigan. Left for Minnesota with a 30-22 record at Western Michigan that included 1-11 their first year.
Yeah, to comment on both those games, though, Ohio University just seemed late on in the year just to be a second-half team. Couldn't get things going in the first half. Greg Windham had to start this game, and I think just the nerves got to him a little bit. Second half, they came together, just couldn't get the ball in the end zone, as you said. A couple stats here. Greg Windham went 23 of 47, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Obviously, those 4 interceptions being the key part in Ohio's loss. Troy's running back, Jordan Chun, 20 carries, only 56 yards, but the guy had 3 touchdowns. So big 21 points from that guy right there. To note on the Wisconsin and Western Michigan game, hats off to Western Michigan. Obviously, they went 2-1 this year against Big Ten opponents. Huge surprise going undefeated the entire year. Great job for them representing the MAC. Just a little too late against Wisconsin in the bowl game. Played their heart out in front of over 100,000 people in Dallas, Texas. Great job from them. And moving forward without PJ Fleck, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. One game I would like to note on, though, Tulsa played Central Michigan. Tulsa absolutely destroyed Central Michigan 55-10. Tulsa's offense is the real deal, folks. Dane Evans, the quarterback, went 28 of 38, 304 passing yards, and 5 touchdowns. Great game from him. Also, the running backs. They had 2 running backs over 1,400 yards this year. I have not seen that in a long time. James Flanders had 17 carries for 105 yards. He finished the year with 1,629 rushing yards. And D'Angelo Birkins had 17 carries for 100 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. He finished with 1,425 rushing yards. So good job from Tulsa. But again, the MAC just did not play well as a whole. 0-6. You had one more game you want to talk about, the Appalachian State and Toledo game.
Yeah, from 2 good quarterbacks there in Zach Terrell and Cooper Rush to another great MAC quarterback in Logan Woodside. Him and the Rockets were unable to pull it out over Appalachian State, a 31-28. Very close game throughout the final minutes. Michael Rubino put App State up for good, 31-28 in the last 5 minutes. Logan Woodside came in through 2 touchdowns, 42 on the season. I don't care what level of college football you're playing at. That is absolutely outstanding. Another dominant performance for Kareem Hunt. 22 carries, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns out the backfield for the Rockets. And Toledo struggled on defense. That's really been the story of their whole season. 416 yards allowed, a major problem for them this season. Reason why they weren't more competitive.
They had 4 losses all year. That was Toledo. They lost to BYU early on by 2 points in by BYU. Lost to Ohio a couple weeks later by 5. The biggest loss they had was at Western Michigan. That was the last game of the regular season. They lost by 20. And this bowl game, they lost by 3. They were very competitive in all their losses. They could have won those other 3 and ended up being probably 11-1 at the end of the year, or 12-1.
Maybe playing for the MAC championship there if they pull it out against Western.
Just could not finish games correctly. Now, looking at the season as a whole for the MAC, who was the biggest disappointment you had, Ethan?
I think it's got to be the Akron Zips, coming off an 8-5 record last year, winning the Idaho Potato Bowl over Utah State. It was their first bowl win in program history. Dropped to 5-7, a 4-2 start, including hanging 65 on Marshall, who's a historically good football program. They lost their last 4, including one of the worst football games I've ever seen against Ohio, 9-3, the only football game in Division 1A not to have a touchdown this year. And all they needed was 1 game to be bowl eligible. They just couldn't pull it out in the end, and they got blown out their last 4 games.
Yeah, I was going to say that with you, that early on in the season they were fighting there against Ohio to get that top spot in the MAC East. They fell off the MAC. Miami got hot. You want to talk about Miami for next year being the hottest team and probably the team to look out for the most?
Yeah, I think Miami is going to be probably Ohio's only competitor coming out of the MAC East. They won 6 of their last 7 games after starting 0-6. Chuck Martin really has something going on there in Oxford. 5-19 his first 2 years on campus, 6-7 this year. Found himself a great quarterback, Gus Ragland, after the switch. Took them to a 6-1 record, and they're extremely young, Bobby. They're returning 16 of 22 starters on both sides of the ball. Look out for them next year.
That's going to make this rivalry even better. Ohio versus Miami moving forward. Hasn't had that spark since about 5 years ago when Ohio started out 7-0 and lost to Miami to lose that perfect season and went downhill from there. Hopefully both teams can be very hot coming into this next year. Good luck to both of them, especially the Bobcats. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're talking about the rest of the bowl season here on Ohio Sports.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back here on Ohio Sports Zone. Ethan Graham, Bobby Levine here with you. Bobby, we're going to move out of the MAC into the other Power 6 schools. Besides the Final 4 games, what were your takeaways from the college football postseason?
My favorite bowl game this year had to be the Rose Bowl. I mean, this Rose Bowl was up there with the 2006 National Championship Rose Bowl between Texas and USC when Vince Young walked that championship game in there and ended up bringing Texas its first national championship in a long time. This year it was between USC and Penn State, 2 of the hottest teams in college football. USC had an incredible fourth quarter, winning that game 52-49. Absolute show out of offenses. I mean, Sam Darnold, quarterback came out of nowhere. True freshman out of USC, ended up finishing 33-55, 453 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, only 1 interception. He didn't start the first 4 games, He sat out against the USC against Alabama early on in the season when Alabama absolutely rolled the tide against the Trojans. It took him out until Washington week 4 week 4, and then he actually dominated Washington later on that season. Penn State, though, offense was rolling until the fourth quarter. They got absolutely shut out by the Trojans. Trace McSorley, the quarterback, he can throw the long ball for sure. 18-29, 254 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Later on in the fourth quarter, it seemed like he was forcing the balls, could not find his targets, and was finding more USC Trojan defensive backs than Penn State receivers. Saquon Barkley, folks, remember that name for next year. 25 rushes, 194 yards against that USC defense. He had 2 touchdowns, also had 5 receptions for 55 yards, and also a touchdown.
Yeah, it was truly a great game. I don't think those 2 teams, USC or Penn State, are going anywhere. Maybe 2 Final Four teams next year. We'll get into that a little bit later. Let's move to Michigan. Obviously, they started out very hot. It looked like a lock for the Final Four. Struggled the last 4 of the games of the year. Struggled really mightily. What did you see out of them the last third of the season?
The problem I have with Michigan is Jim Harbaugh was a senior-loaded team this year. He had 43 seniors. He also had Jabril Peppers, who was a junior. Jabril Peppers is now committing to the draft, so they're also losing him, their best all-around athlete. They could not play on the road. They had 2 road wins early on against Rutgers and then Michigan State, who had 0 Big Ten wins at the time. Then they went on the road and played Iowa. Iowa shocked them on a final second field goal. They went to Ohio State, lost in overtime, and then the bowl game was in Orange Bowl, in Miami. Pretty much you could say a home game for Florida State, as that is their home state right there. Probably was 60-40 Florida State, if not more. Cannot play on the road. They just didn't know how to play without Jabril Peppers, who did not play because of a hamstring right before the start. He hurt it earlier that week. I don't know. It was very, very unique seeing that from Michigan. They just did not know how, I guess, the true atmosphere of road games.
Especially with how dominant they looked earlier in the season. Like I said, you looked at Michigan, even if they didn't get around to Ohio State, having a really solid chance to get into that Final Four. But moving on to Ohio State, certainly they took a hard loss against Clemson. Bobby, what happened in that game? Where do you even start?
Oh, where to start? I'm going to start right now with the young talent that Ohio State had going into this. Urban Meyer brought a team that lost 12 guys to the NFL draft, 14 total players now in the NFL from that class. They were they were the youngest team in any Power 5 school. Their offensive coordinators did not come well together. Tim Beck is now gone. He is in Houston, also coaching with Coach Herman, an ex-Ohio State offensive coordinator. And now they're bringing in Kevin Wilson, the offensive coach, for Indiana, who was an absolute powerhouse for the Hoosiers the last couple of years. Hopefully he gets things going with J.T. Barrett. They're losing a lot of guys on defense, but this recruiting class this year is supposed to be one of the best of all time.
Yeah, certainly a lot of optimism to be moving forward. Like you said, Ohio State, lots of youth, but also very, very high expectations up there in Columbus. Doesn't matter what they're projected to do. They're always looking for a BCS bowl, a college football playoff berth. After that, Clemson would go on, pick up a big win against Alabama, 35-31. Much to the surprise of some people. Did that game surprise you at all?
The best national championship game I've seen in a long, long time. Maybe, again, since that Rose Bowl in 06 with Vince Young. It was a great game. I will say this right now on camera, like I said during the podcast, J&B Weekly Wrap-Up. You can see it right here. Once again, Deshaun Watson is the best quarterback to play in college football in the last 10 years. People have come up to me and said Johnny Manziel was great, Cam Newton was great. They were great quarterbacks. They were only there for 1 or 2 years. Deshaun Watson took a team to the national championship twice. Johnny Manziel could win a good game and shine in the moment, but he never got them to a power bowl game. And then the difference between Cam Newton was he was only there for 1 year, not 2 years. And we'll see. I think the play that Deshaun Watson had in the national championship game against the best defense of all time in college football was amazing. His presence in the pocket was amazing. The throws he had to his receivers were on the money. And if not, he would run and had a great game as a whole.
Certainly Deshaun Watson, a lock to be very high pick in the NFL. Now, looking forward to next year, who's your way too early Heisman prediction, Bobby?
Way too early Heisman prediction. It would have been Deshaun Watson if he would have stuck around for his true senior year, but he is going and leaving. I said his name early on now, Saquon Barkley. He's going to be the offense for Penn State moving forward. Yes, they still have Trace McSorley, the quarterback, but if you're running for 195-plus yards against USC, and USC's defense is supposed to be very, very talented, watch out in the Big Ten. This guy could be the next Ezekiel Elliott. Not as good as Ezekiel Elliott because Zeke could go out there and catch the ball and take the hits that he did against big-time opponents, but definitely watch out for Saquon.
And like you said, the Big Ten there, it looked like one of the, if not the best conference during regular season college football. Let's look forward to that Final Four next year. Do you see any Big Ten teams getting in? Who's your Final Four? Way too early, Bobby.
The Big Ten, the SEC, and the ACC teams have never been shut out of a Final Four yet, and I do not see that trend stopping anytime soon. The first game of the season for Alabama next year is against Florida State. They just lost Alvin Cook for Florida State running back, who actually went off against Michigan. He had 145 yards on 20 carries. Whoever wins that game to start out the year is going to be a front runner to win the national championship. So I think coming out of the ACC, Florida State, Clemson's going to fall off a little bit. Alabama, of course, is still going to be there. It's going to be between Ohio State and Penn State in the Big Ten, and USC's got that West Coast locked up. I think the Big 12 gets shut out once more.
Yeah, certainly should be a very interesting college football season coming up. Going to be a long time from now. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be up right next with Ohio Sports Zone.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to Ohio Sports Zone. This is the last segment. Eat the Gram. I'm Bobby Levine. We're talking about basketball, men's and women's. We're going to start out with the men's team. They're 11-3 right now. Very, very, very hot. 3-0 in the MAC. Who has stood out for you over break so far for the men's team?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go off the board here. There's two guys. Jason Carter, who's a freshman. We talked about at the beginning of the year. We weren't really sure what his role would be, what he would contribute to this Bobcats team. But he has come in and made the most out of his bench minutes, averaging about 5 points, 3 rebounds a game. Exactly what you're looking out for from a bench player. And he can shoot the three as well. So if he's open, if they're on the fast break, they're really looking to space the floor. Jason Carter can knock down threes.
Absolutely. They had a couple big wins there. And to start out the season right now in the MAC, they are 3-0. There's only one other team in the MAC. That is Akron, who is 3-0. Do you buy into this team? Are they for real or are they for show?
I absolutely buy into Ohio right now. From top to bottom, they're great. They have a good bench depth, like I was saying with Taylor. Jason Carter, Rodney Culvers came in this year able to contribute. And you look at things, it's balanced. It doesn't always have to be Antonio. Last year, you kind of got the sense that, if Antonio Campbell wasn't scoring early, they're going to have a really hard time winning this game. Antonio, last time out against Buffalo, only 9 points and 6 rebounds. That's a good stat line, but he's not controlling the game by any means. Jerron led the team in scoring that game, 14 points, 5 assists, and Antonio was obviously only one bucket away from all of the starters being in double figures in that game. So really, I look at the balance that Ohio has right now. That's the biggest indicator to me that I think this team really has a great chance to go to the NCAA tournament, maybe knock a team off in the first round.
No, I'm agreeing with you 100%. I mean, Buffalo was a very tough team to play, especially on the road. I mean, they always say during conference play, win your home games, and then somehow find a way to win on the road, get out of there when you can. Winning on a buzzer beater, though, I mean, that's a huge win for them just to escape, stay perfect in the season. Next week they play Akron. How big is that game on the schedule? I know it's very early on still in in conference play, but moving forward, if they can win this game and get all the momentum, huge, you say?
Yeah, I would say this Akron game is going to be their biggest game of the season, other than when they return the favor and make the trip into the combo. Isaiah Johnson is going to have to be someone that Ohio looks out for. 16 points a game, 7 rebounds, and he can pass too. 3.5 assists. He's absolutely crazy, 6'10", 290. If Antonio gets into foul trouble early, Ohio is going to have some major issues in this game. So really, if they can stop Isaiah Johnson, they're going to have a great chance to win this game. But that's what it's going to come down to, the play of the big guys in the middle cleaning the glass.
And you think Jerron Simmons is going to have a heck of a game for them to stay up? What are the keys to this game as a whole?
Yeah, Jerron is certainly going to have a big game. You looked earlier in the year, he was having some turnover problems, but his distribution of the basketball has gotten much, much better. Kenny Kaminsky also started out kind of slow, kind of inconsistent shooting the three. That's his game. He's going to take his threes. He's going to miss his shots. But certainly last game had that huge shot against Buffalo. And Kenny's a guy, you get him going early, it's going to be a long night for the other team. I don't care who you're playing. So, like a Big Ten Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year, certainly has that three-point stroke. Everyone on the Bobcats really can contribute in some way. It's not always points, not always rebounds, but certainly this is a well-rounded team, like I was saying. And I think they're going to have a great opportunity to win the MAC going forward.
Well, good luck to the men's team. Now you want to switch over to the women's gear and get me going here?
Yeah, I think so. So what happened at the end of non-conference play here for the Bobcats?
Little iffy to end the non-conference play for the women's team. They beat Illinois, a big-time Big Ten school. Then the last game of the non-conference, they ended up losing to North Carolina A&T. The North Carolina A&T was 2-9 going into this game. They lost 63-57. That team, though, was in the tournament last year. Now, starting out the year 2-9, it would be nice to get a win against such a poor play team right now. But Bob even commented saying that this team will have a chance to win their conference and get into the tournament. Hopefully, they'll be above 500 at the time to make them look a little better. But losing that, now they're right now 12-3 and 3-1. Their key, though, so far this year is they're 7-0 at home. You have to win your home games. They're doing it right now.
Yes, certainly that they do, and that is a great arena when it is rocking the combo. 3-1 in the MAC play, like you said. Any big wins to start out MAC play for the Lady Cats?
Finally, they got the monkey off their back. They finally beat Buffalo for the first time since March of 2015. They went 0-3 last year against the Buffalo Bulls. Unfortunately, that knocked them out of the way from making the March Madness tournament. They finally get a big win. They won 83-55. Huge win for the ladies.
Now moving over to maybe a more negative side, they did come out and lose to Akron. Bobby, what happened in that game? What went wrong for the Lady Cats?
Lost in Northern Illinois. They beat Akron. Excuse you.
I guess so.
No, but they did beat Akron 85-69. Jasmine Weatherspoon had one great game. She had a record high. She played 23 minutes, had a career game with 19 points. This is the third straight game for the ladies scoring over 80 points. They're 2-1 in those 3 games over 80. As you said, they lost to Northern Illinois. But right now, the West in the MAC is so much better than the East. Ohio is the only team above 500 in conference play at 3-1. Everyone else is 1-3 or 0-4.
Like you said, not a whole lot going on in the MAC East. Is there any other teams you want to look out for in the MAC, maybe moving forward, that might present some challenges here for the Bobcats?
Absolutely. Right now, Central Michigan is 4-0, Northern Illinois is 4-0, Ball State, Toledo, and Western Michigan are all 3-1. The whole West has to be looking out for upset alert when they're playing the East. It's going to be a battle royale to see who comes out of that West and ends up playing probably Ohio later on in that MAC tournament. I got to keep an eye out, though, for Central Michigan. It's staying perfect. They're playing really well right now. And then, obviously, Northern Illinois, they beat Ohio a couple of games ago. But, again, they were up in Northern Illinois. So you get them down here in Athens, we'll see any girls can play against us.
Certainly should be an interesting basketball season moving forward for both the women and the men's here on the Athens campus.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, I want to give a huge shout-out, though, to Kira Lampkin. She's got 19.4 points per game. And Jasmine Weatherspoon, down low, has been incredible. She's averaging 10.7 points per game and 8.4 rebounds per game. Bob Bolden's got his girls ready and geared up for the rest of the MAC play. They keep it up. I do expect the men's and the women's to take home that MAC championship and be in tournament play in the March Madness.
Certainly should be a big season coming up here for both of them.
Absolutely. So we'll see you guys next week again. Ethan Graham, I'm Bobby Levine here on Ohio Sports Zone.